Hi again guys, and welcome to episode 3 of Heavy Hitters, the review series for the SUVs and trucks of Gran Turismo 6. Now in this episode we're featuring the most powerful SUV slash truck in the game, the Chevy Silverado SST Concept. Now this car is a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to what it's good and bad at. There are a couple of great things about it, a couple of not so good things. In terms of the good stuff, well, as we said, it's the most powerful SUV or truck in the game at 949 horsepower, fully tuned. So it's got a significant lead over any of the other SUVs and trucks in terms of sheer power. It also puts out 831 pound-feet of torque. And it costs 95,000 credits, which, although initially that may sound quite steep for a pickup truck, that's actually remarkably good value. Because if you compare this truck to its two main rivals, which are the Pikes Peak Quattro from Audi and the Range Stormer from Land Rover, both of those vehicles have less power and cost many times more than this. The Range Stormer is 750 grand, the Audi is 1.2 million. This is only 95,000 credits, so it is far more affordable and has far more bang for buck. But what about the downsides? Well, one of the downsides is its weight. This is an extremely heavy vehicle. It's one of the heaviest vehicles in the game. It weighs well over 2 tons when you buy it, and even with the full weight loss package, it still weighs 1,691 kilos. So even with the full weight loss package, it's an extremely heavy vehicle, even for an SUV slash truck. It's also rear-wheel drive, which is something to bear in mind. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's a good or a bad thing, because both obviously have their merits. All-wheel drive would have meant that it would have made a good launch drag car off the line. Unfortunately, it's not. But at the same time, all-wheel drive would have made it even heavier, so that would have been a disadvantage. So, all in all, the fact that it's rear-wheel drive is pretty much perfect in the case of this truck. All-wheel drive may have made it quicker off the line, but it would have added a lot more weight. And this car doesn't really need all-wheel drive. The grip and traction are very impressive for a rear-wheel drive vehicle, and there is literally no other vehicle in the game which has this much power, but this little wheel spin. It is almost impossible to get this truck to wheel spin or slide out on corners. It just handles so well. And one of the reasons why it has so much traction is actually for the same reason why a train has traction. The sheer weight of the vehicle gives it traction. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible to make it wheel spin, of course not. With minimal tuning, it makes an excellent drag machine, or I should say drift machine, but even without tuning it for drifting, it's still an excellent track car. The handling is very smooth. The handling, to be honest, is far better than it has any right to be as a 1.7 tonne SUV. But it does handle great on the track, and it can even keep up, thanks to its power and torque, with vehicles that it has no right to be able to keep up with, such as certain sports cars, and in some cases even some racing cars. Now, one of the letdowns, I would say, with this vehicle are that it's actually not as quick as you'd think. At 949 horsepower, you'd expect it to blow every other SUV and truck completely out of the water, considering that is hundreds, literally hundreds of horsepower more than the other SUVs. But the top speed is actually inferior to many of them, and that's a shame, because this truck has the potential to be one of the quickest vehicles in the game, especially in its class, but the top speed is barely above 220, which is slower than both the Range Stormer and the Pikes Peak Quattro, and even other trucks with far less power, such as the Ford Lightning, the Toyota Tacoma, etc., have very similar top speeds. Even the Dodge Ram can outrun this car in a straight line in a drag race. So it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of good and bad things with this truck. Now, the value for money is fantastic, and I would say that is the best thing about this vehicle. It's far, far cheaper than any of its main rivals, and the amount of power and torque that you get from this vehicle are unarguable. And, although, as we said, it's not the quickest, make no mistake, it is still a very, very quick truck. Handling-wise, well, we already said it's good. Very smooth, very beginner-friendly, very easy to drive, minimal wheel spin, and surprisingly good track car. Its main downside is just that it's not as quick as it deserves to be. But another thing to bear in mind about this truck is that because it's a concept, and this is a recurring theme with many of the concepts on the game, and it's something that you need to know if you plan on buying it, so that you're mainly not disappointed, is that you cannot paint it. And I think that's a shame. And that's actually the main reason why I dislike cars like the Alfa Romeo TZ3. Because when everybody's car looks the same, that bores me. And losing that personalisation does affect my choice in vehicle. Now, in the case of this truck, it's not so important because not many people use it. With the Alfa Romeo, I get sick of seeing that red over and over and over again. Now, with this truck, it's not so bad because there's no way near as many people who drive these. But it is something to bear in mind if you plan on buying one, that you cannot paint it, you cannot upgrade the visuals in any way apart from ride height and stance. You cannot even change the rims. So you do need to bear that in mind. But the fact remains that it is excellent value for money. It is a very quick truck. And if you're looking for something for truck racing specifically, it is one of the best as a track vehicle. And although slower than some in a straight line, it is still very quick. It's like saying that a Pagani Zonda is slower than a Veyron. Of course it is, but it's still a very fast car. Likewise with the Silverado, it is definitely no slouch. So overall, I would definitely recommend that you give this car a try if you haven't before. It's a very good car. And that's it for this episode. So I'll see you guys next time. And as always, thanks for watching.